In 1972, Amin decided on a radical policy towards Uganda's Asian minority, most of whom had British passports.
Last Friday, I announced the decision of my government to ask the British government to take over responsibility for the British citizens of Asian origin living in Uganda.
The Ugandan Asians who'd been brought to Uganda under British colonial rule were to be expelled en masse within 90 days.
By order of the military government, the anti-Asian campaign swung into action last weekend.
The Asians are unwanted. They have done more harm than good.
The Africans were not given a chance. They were frustrated right from the very beginning.
Oh, go down.
I got letter.
Do you feel threatened?
Well, I do. Just in 90 days you cannot do anything.
We had 90 days to leave, and you can imagine the panic. And in fact, I was 10 at the time, and it was just my parents just kind of, dumbstruck. What do you do? I mean, we weren't prepared for this, so there were no savings or anything like that.
Idi Amin had become president of Uganda after a military coup.
He went around telling everybody that he had three best friends. One was the Queen, our Queen. One was Moshe Dayan, the Israeli Defense Minister. And the other was the British High Commissioner. So, I was in good company.
Richard Slater found he was no longer one of Amin's best friends.
There were all his ministers standing in a row, and civil servants and soldiers and who knows who. But they all were too scared to throw me a kindly word or to appear to know me at all. So I was in the doghouse. And then Amin was busy stuffing himself, and we hardly exchanged a word.
Actually, I took this decision for the economy of Uganda. And I must make sure that every Ugandans get a fruit of independence. Since independent, actually Uganda is not yet independent, I will say that. Even when the British handed over on the 9th of October 1962, the Uganda still not yet independent. Uganda will be independent after this, my decision, after I want to see that the whole Kampala street is not full of Indians. It must be proper black, and administration in those shops is run by the Ugandans.
Would you like to get all Asians out, really, sir?
Yes, they must go to their country.
Even nationals of Uganda?
If they want to go, they are welcome to go.
What will happen to these people if they don't go by the time they leave?
I think they will be sitting like they are sitting on the fire. I will tell you this. You just wait after 3 months.
What will you do to them?
Okay, you will see.
You said you wanted Uganda.
I think they will not sit comfortable here in Uganda. I will tell you this. I must actually tell you the truth.
Have you asked the British to take them away, sir?
That you are building transit camp for them if they are not going?
I am not responsible for building them transit camp.
Have you asked the British to take them away, sir?
Yes, it is the British High Commissioner is here, his responsibility.
Yes.
I have told him.
You've said you wanted to teach Britain a lesson, President. Why is that?
And that is now lesson I am teaching the British. I am teaching now the lesson because I am correcting them from the mistake they had made. If they had think before earlier that there is the African here who can even work and building the railway with the instruction given to them by the British, this problem will not happen.
Isn't this going to end your friendship with Britain?
I don't mind ending. What are you giving me? What is more you are giving me? British actually deceived me last year, giving me £10 million. They never give up to now. When I had a really very critical problem of finance, up to now. Now I don't want that man again. And now they have given, I think every year, 4.5 million every year. But this, even if they withdrawn or they take it away, it will not marking time Uganda even 1 minute. I must make this clear. But the British are my best friends. I
wish I understood that.
If the thousands of Uganda Asians who face expulsion were worried about their future before, they're extremely alarmed now. The reason is not hard to find. President Amin, who went on record the other day with a statement that Hitler had the right answer when he gassed 6 million Jews, has warned them that if they aren't out of the country by November the 8th, they'll be rounded up and placed in camps under military control. Do you think you're going to get out by November the 8th?
No, it's very difficult.
Not possible.
Camps are waiting for us.
What? The camps, the military camps. What do you think about that?
We cannot tell you now how they are going to treat us.
You're a bit worried about it?
Yeah.
What is worrying them especially is that the promised exodus to Britain has so far shown no signs of getting off the ground. In fact, they say quite the contrary. The British High Commission, instead of speeding up its entry permit procedure, has slowed it down. Only 50 or 60 Asians are being processed a day now, instead of 300 or more a week or so ago. How long have you been waiting here?
Last night we slept here.
Last night you slept here?
Yeah.
How many days have you been here?
7 at least.
7 at least.
Never reached the door.
You've never reached the door?
Yeah. Never reached the door.
Well, you're going to reach the door today, aren't you?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
You don't think so? Because if they're doing 80 a day, I would say they're not 80 in front of you, are they, right now?
Not now. But every time we enter, there's always a fault in our documents. I mean, they find one at least.
We appreciate that at the present these people are working. They are giving us every assistance, whatever possible they way. But at the same time, there are certain obstructions which is causing people more delay. And there is a deadline of 7. You understand that?
So what do you think the upshot is going to be? You're just not going to
We
make
don't
it
know. That's why people are worried.
And these are only the quota voucher Asians whose applications were in the pipeline before General Amin made his expulsion order last month. The big flood of 25,000 is still to come, and not one has so far been issued with an entry permit. The Asians also ask why the airlift is taking so long to get started. The main reason seems to be money. A full-scale airlift will cost something like £3 million. Uganda has no foreign currency, and our other East African partners, Kenya and Tanzania, have said they have no intention of bailing out General Amin. That leaves the British taxpayer.
The far right fueled public hostility to the prospect of another wave of immigration.
We've taken a petition down to the Robert Cohen, the Home Office, and we're asking him to have some common sense about this. We have 1 million unemployed. We can't squeeze up anymore.
I was in the Home Office and sent down to the Immigration Department to help cope with just the masses of parliamentary questions and ministerial correspondence and correspondence from the public we got during the Ugandan Asian crisis. Massive, nasty, vile, racist postbag.
At first, ministers seemed reluctant to displease the opponents of immigration.
I can remember the then minister having himself on the TV.
The government's first priority has been, as a matter of great urgency, to get in touch with over 20 governments all over the world who might assist.
Promising them that they wouldn't all come there. They'd arranged for Canada to take some from them and everything, as if they were some sort of, frightful disease.
I'm sure that new homes can be found for many of these Asians throughout the world.
I think this whole business of saying that other countries were going to help us by taking some of them was very, very bad in the public relations point of view.
These rumours were there that, Britain's not interested in taking us, and India said categorically didn't want to know because it didn't see us as Indians, that we were British, and so there was a real problem and a real panic.
The fact which worries us so much, Mr. Chairman, and through you, Mr. Ambassador, is the expulsion of a great number of people without precise charge. General charges are one thing. One can always make general charges against any group. But when they are so imprecise and people are expelled not for criminal acts or anything that can be precisely described, but because of other factors and of wild and general charges, then we are right to be concerned as individuals and as a subcommission of the United Nations.
The Ugandan government insists that Britain is under moral and legal obligation to assume full responsibility for her own citizens, and that she has no right to expect Uganda to be a dumping ground for her own unwanted citizens. The Uganda government repudiates the various false charges that have been leveled against her by the British government and by sections of the British press, and asserts that there is nothing racialist in the measures that have been taken in Uganda. It further draws the attention of the world to the fact that the process whereby non-nationals of titular countries have been given notice to quit those countries within a specified period has happened many times before in Africa as well as elsewhere.
Have you accepted his 90 days or not?
No, I didn't accept his 90 days. He said Mr. Ripon accepted it, I think, in the course of his press interview. But one has to accept it in the sense that if that is the Uganda government's policy and decision, certain consequences flow from it. And when it was put to him that if at the end of 90 days everybody hasn't been moved, what is going to happen to the Asians who are left behind because they can't be moved physically or because they're Ugandan citizens or because their status is undetermined? And he said, well, we'll put them in camps.
Are you in fact saying that in the next 90 days you can pressurize or cajole him into changing his mind?
Well, I don't know. I mean, one hopes that, as I said, that matters will be conducted in a humane, a decent, orderly and just manner. So all one can do is to say we have fulfilled our British responsibilities in a reasonable way in that period. We will demonstrate, the realities, and hope that in that new situation there can be another look at the problem. But it's obviously difficult.
We go on giving Uganda aid, do we? Or not?
Well, I made it perfectly clear I didn't go there either to make threats or to make promises, but to say here was a situation involving tens of thousands of human beings who couldn't be shunted about like cattle, and that we weren't threatening and we weren't promising. I said, though, of course, there is a distinction between accepting a decision made by the Uganda government and the way in which that decision is carried out.
From England. Cabinet Minister. Find out how you're all getting on. Now you're got your British passport. Yes, sir. Now, what are you doing today? Going to have it checked or renewed, or to apply for a voucher?
Voucher, yes, sir. For the voucher, yes.
How long have people have had to wait on the queue? Because there is a quota, as you know, which has been
but now if we go on waiting for the queue, I don't think we will be able to get a voucher within 90 days. And in that case, we'll be less in trouble. Then what to get? What about our safety of our life?
Where are you going to in Britain?
In Leicester.
What do you do there?
Well, I will try to get any job as an accountant. I'm expecting somehow any job.
Were you born in this country?
Well, I born here in Uganda, Sarodi.
I am not going to change my mind at all. Therefore, they must sell everything they have between now and the 90 days from Monday. This is what I have said.
This morning at the High Commission you saw quite a large number of Asians. Have we in any way altered our policy insofar as letting them into Britain goes?
Well, I mean, we have had a policy of dealing with this matter in an orderly way. A great number.
Have we changed it?
Well, no. Why should we? Because it's a sensible policy of allowing in an orderly fashion, the people with United Kingdom passports who have applied for vouchers.
President Amin's policy has been condemned in this country as being racist. Do you have any comment on that?
Yes, I think that this is an entirely unfair accusation, which is totally unfounded, because these people are British citizens. They want to come to this country, and they're being refused to come to this country, which is their own country. And when we have the Ugandan British citizens, the Asians who are Ugandan citizens are free in Uganda and happy. So the racialism charge should be leveled at Britain, because it's Britain who is refusing these people to come here because they are not white, because they are Asians.
We have got very gross overcrowding in some parts of the immigrant areas. If these other Ugandan nations come, there's no doubt that they will add to overcrowding, and once they arrive within the city, it'll be extraordinarily difficult to keep track of them, and they will be lost within the population already here. We won't get rid of them once they've come.
Well, you might. I mean, they might come just for a short time, mightn't they, and then go to some other town?
They might. I think that's unlikely, because as you say, they will want to stay with relatives, and they'll want to have the job opportunities which exist here to some extent. But there'll be gross overcrowding, and it could lead to a breakdown of our social services.
Going to happen to people whom President Amin says must leave? Will Britain help them?
Oh yes, I think so. They will have to help. Under any circumstances, they'll have to take us.
Why is that?
We are British subject. We have been issued British passports. So they will have, that is their responsibility.
Here, can you sell your businesses? Will you be able to do that?
We have to sell. We are trying.
Who will buy? There is no buyers. You just have to leave it like that. There is no buyers.
Why are there no buyers?
Well, Africans themselves are very poor. They can't afford to buy so many business, even properties. I don't think so.
No one will be able to get money?
No, unless Uganda government itself helps them. Then I think they can buy it, you see. It is just like that. We just have to leave our property. As we came here without money, we just have to go without money. That's all.
Behind all the promises from Britain and the threats from Uganda lies the personal tragedy of Damji Varu. More than 50,000 people like him in Uganda alone are being forced to live out these days the leaders and statesmen only talk about. Each day now, groups of Africans are touring Asian houses demanding what they can buy. From now on, the Varu family will have to sleep on the concrete floor. The beds fetched £2 apiece, and the purchasers made sure the springs were well tested, while Damji and the rest looked on. The television set is already wrapped up for transport. It cost £90 and sold for £40. Gradually, as the rooms are cleared, the family packs the bed linen and the thin clothes with which they'll face a winter such as they cannot really imagine. Damji, a Gujarati employed as a solicitor's clerk, has supported his wife, 3 children and his elderly parents here in this house for 10 years. They've built the walls high, they say, and put barbed wire and broken glass on the top, not to keep Africans but thieves out. Old Ramji, the father, had a contractor's business employing 40 Africans and a passport issued in the days when Britain had an empire. And Ramji fought for that Raj in 3 continents. Now it's all gone. The family's living frugally on beans and lentil soup because they don't know how much money they'll have to pay to get to Britain. They pray a lot to the pictures of Hindu gods, and the children have a special prayer. It's about snow. The last item to go will be the card. It's regarded as a family lifeline to get them out of here as a last resort before that day in November when General Amin has promised he'll make those ignoring the ultimatum feel as though they're sitting on fire.
Less than half of the Ugandan Asians were offered homes by other countries. The government finally took the decision to admit the remainder, nearly 30,000 people.
Just to show that you are a resident of Uganda.
At the height of the crisis, the decision was debated at the Conservative conference in Blackpool.
Enoch Powell came to the conference and moved a motion effectively condemning the government for its policies.
When the East African countries became independent, there was no suggestion, let alone undertaking, in Parliament or outside, that those inhabitants who remained citizens of the United Kingdom and colonies would have right of entry into this country.
All the great party managers would be, I knew what they'd be up to, they'd be trying to suggest to the leader of the party that we should have a fudge. When I talked to Ted, he said, of course we're taking it on, we'll go in and bet, and we did.
I must make clear that I utterly reject
Mr. Powell's criticisms of our policies and intentions. We put a great deal into our empire, and we also took a lot out. We have our imperial heritage and our obligations, and to those we will stick. That is why I ask you today with confidence to support your government by giving us an overwhelming majority for this resolution as amended.
I didn't know I could shout as well as that. But however, it was quite a dramatic debate, which we won by a very substantial majority.
I think Robert Carr is a remarkable man. He's been underestimated. It took a lot of courage to do what he did.
Once the decision had been made, there was a rapidly organised programme of airlifts from Uganda. Many in Britain welcomed the new arrivals.
A notice was given out in church by the vicar saying that people were going to come, and anybody who could help and give assistance of any kind, please would they go out and do so.
And then landed at Stansted. And I'll tell you something, I've never been so cold in my life.
They had arrived in very thin clothes, and they were really very chilly.
You knew it was going to be cold, and you'd read about snow and things like that, but this was cold, and this is October, this is early October.
What a lovely baby, is it a boy or a girl?
A girl.
Oh, look at that.
It was a wonderful opportunity to get a bit of space in my wardrobe and feel that it was going to help somebody. I just went home and got coats and jackets and things of that nature and took them out.
I remember being ushered into this building, or I guess like a terminal building, and it was like Aladdin's cave, full of clothes.
Unless do you want some winter clothes? You might want some winter clothes. We'd better go to the clothing place next, I think.
And it was wonderful. You just had layers on layer after layer after layer. It was great. I remember that. And, having a great big coat on at the end of it all. So you got 10 layers and a great big coat on top, and you felt like a king.
One young couple in South London opened their doors to a family of Ugandan Asians.
We lived in Lambeth with a young family, and we passionately believed in good community relations at a time when it was far from easy.
My father very kindly gave up the spare room he had in our house. He was a civil servant working in Whitehall and was content to be displaced.
I think Eleanor Roosevelt's great phrase that it's better to light a candle than curse the darkness. If you care about things, do something.
But this sort of welcome was rare. Though the political establishment had stood up to the far right, the episode had revived public hostility towards immigrants. Tensions were most acute in areas like Leicester, where many of them had settled.
They're coming over thick and fast now, and I'd like to think that they're going to put a halt to it shortly.
Well, I think it's about time the government took over its responsibilities and sent these people back to their country of origin.
I think our friend Enoch's got the right idea there, and the National Front.
Many of the 28,000 Ugandan Asians who landed in the chill British autumn came with little more than the lightweight clothing on their backs and a few bundles of fairly worthless possessions that Amin's men had allowed them to keep. A few joined relatives and friends already in Britain. The others went into resettlement camps. Today there are just under 1,000 still living in two camps, one in Kent, the other in Lincolnshire. Many of those who have left the camps have found life in Britain tough. A quarter of them are still unemployed. Others, often skilled men, are working at jobs well below their capabilities. But there are success stories too, like that of the 4 Sayani brothers, who were among the first to be expelled. Starting here with virtually nothing, they had to abandon a £40,000 tailoring factory in Uganda. They set up in the boutique business. One of the shops in a prosperous London suburb is run by the youngest brother, Diamond Sayani, with his wife, Shaynaz. 2 of the other brothers are now touring the Far East for special stocks for more boutiques they plan to open soon. Another boutique is run by the 4th brother, ironically named Amin Mohammed, with his wife Mazia. They made their mistakes at first, witnessed still by racks of cut-priced, oversized garments because they forgot that British girls are not built on quite the same proportions as Ugandan ladies. But they soon sorted themselves out, as I learned when I asked Amin Mohammed how things were going now for them.
Well, I think we are doing very well here.
Better than
yes,
you
better
were in
than
Uganda?
Uganda, yes. And there are a lot of opportunities in this country here, provided you are willing to work.
Well, now, would you say, in fact, looking back, that in a sense, President Amin had done you a favour by booting you out?
Yes, I quite agree with you.
How has your turnover been going?
Well, the first 2 months we had a turnover of about £350 a week. But now we are doing about between 15 and 1600 pounds a week.
Is it getting bigger all the time?
Yes.
Now, of course, a lot of people haven't been nearly as successful as you, and they're still living in resettlement camps. Is this their fault or what?
Well, I think, see, if them, I don't know what about them, but if you want to do something in this country, it is very easy. You must have some initiative to start something with.
The worry for Britain is that this influx could set a precedent that might open the doors to 300,000 other British passport holders round the world. For the Asians themselves, it's the challenge of a new life in a new country. In Uganda, they were a successful and enterprising business community, and they're unlikely to be satisfied until they've attained a comparable position in Britain. For the moment, they're poor, but they're very glad to have escaped from President Amin's strife-torn Uganda.